This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Today on Faith Under Fire, Family Life talks with attorney Thomas Breth, who's from Western Pennsylvania, who sued the state education department in the Commonwealth as 3 school districts were concerned about some of the curriculum mandates and teacher education requirements that state authorities wanted to put on local school districts in PA. Would you tell us a little bit about how that case started?
First of all, Greg, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on Family Life Radio. The case started in November of 2022 when the outgoing governor of Pennsylvania issued these what they call critically relevant and sustaining education guidelines. We do work for a variety of folks in Western Pennsylvania, including school districts. It was brought to our attention by some concerned school board members. We were asked to look into it and develop a potential legal theory to fight it.
And what were they requiring or expecting these local school districts to do? It was on a lot of some of the more liberal social agendas and shutting down some of the more traditional values?
Correct. In Pennsylvania, local school boards have control over the curriculum. Obviously, the State Department of Education provides guidelines and regulations, so they have to teach certain subjects. But in Pennsylvania, local school boards have control over their curriculums. This was mandating that they incorporate within their curriculums the educational obligations of their teachers and their students, these 9 what they call competencies. And these competencies, and it's hard to believe that in America you would have this, they actually mandated what teachers had to believe and required the teachers to impose those mandates upon their students and require their students to believe certain things, such as they have believed that all learners have a choice and a right to practice and language of their culture, that they had to try to disrupt proceedings and policies and practices within school settings if they felt that those institutional policies were inappropriate, believe and acknowledge that microaggressions are real and take steps to educate themselves about the subtle and obvious ways in which they are used to harm and invalidate the existence of others. It really was a method to impose their ideological beliefs upon the teachers and through the teachers upon the students.
There are listeners who I'm sure are concerned about microaggressions that happen, but there are also a lot of people who are saying anytime you use those phrases or those criteria, you're trying to indoctrinate rather than teaching children how to learn. Let's skip to the results here. The state education department very recently has backed down from those mandates. What happened with that case?
Correct. As part of the litigation, we reached a resolution that required them to send notification to all the superintendents, the executive directors of the various educational institutions, K-12 through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, notifying them that the framework had been rescinded and was void. When they put these guidelines out, they made it clear to school districts that if they didn't follow the guidelines, their basic education subsidy, which comes from the state to the local school districts, could be in jeopardy. So it was a very heavy-handed approach that they took with these school districts. And we're not opposed to an open discussion about these topics. The legal theory that resulted in the victory in this case was that the Department of Education doesn't have the ability to unilaterally mandate this without going through the regulatory review process, which is important in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania because that gives parents, students, educators, citizens the ability to put input into and have public hearings regarding the regulations that are being proposed. Instead of following that process, which is the appropriate process. The governor and the governor's secretary of education at the time just tried to circumvent that and mandate this through guidelines. And that's what was really offensive. We're certainly more than welcome to have an open conversation with respect to any of these issues, microaggressions or otherwise. But what we don't want is bureaucrats to circumvent the law, do things that aren't open to the public review and inspection, and mandate them upon our teachers and our students.
There is some of that same debate on educational theory as the federal education department may be on the chopping block. Same thing happening at the state level in Pennsylvania. Thomas Breth is our guest today. He was victorious in a lawsuit against the state education department. There's something about that on the federal money, huge federal dollars, you kind of have to go along. The state was trying to push that. Who were the school districts? Was it teachers, parents, the schools themselves that brought this legal action?
We had a really broad group of plaintiffs that brought this action, and they're really courageous to do it because the repercussions in the way that the government many times retaliates against individuals. So we had 3 school districts, the Mars Area School District, the Penncrest School District, and the Laurel School District. Each of their superintendents joined in. Their boards of school directors joined in. We had individual board members from other districts. We had teachers join in, and then obviously parents and students join in as the plaintiffs in this case. The superintendent as well as the teachers, it was a really difficult situation for them because they're licensed within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and they're licensed through the Department of Education. So it took a great amount of courage on their part to step up and say, I don't care what threats you're going to make with respect to my license. This is an extremely important issue, and they were instrumental in this litigation.
And so the state essentially settles this out of court, backs off from those mandates. What's the inspiration for other people who are concerned about what's happening in their state processes and in their local schools? Those folks who stepped out that way, what are the lessons for other folks as we move forward?
You know what, the lesson I think is that you can make a difference. Individual school board members, teachers, administrators. We've been very blessed to work with the Thomas More Society. They have funded numerous litigations throughout the Commonwealth dealing with a number of issues. Religious rights for students that attend parochial schools that are being discriminated against by the public school system, various mandates, mask mandates, and other types of mandates that have come through the Department of Education. It's encouraging with their assistance to be able to empower parents and students that sometimes feel like there's nothing they can do. It only takes a small group to step up and say, we're willing to put our name on a complaint because this is wrong. We know it's wrong, and we want to fight. And we've been very successful in the litigation that we've been able to put forth, and courageous plaintiffs that are willing to step up and say enough is enough.
Thomas, thank you so much for telling this story here for us for Family Life.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan. I told you off the air, a big fan of Family Life Radio. Listen to it daily, so it's an honor to be on your radio station.
We're glad to have you here. Thomas Breth is an attorney in private practice in Butler, Pennsylvania. He also partners with the Thomas More Society on a number of issues of interest to religious and conservative folks. The State Department of Education has dropped its mandates for the entire Commonwealth after 3 school districts sued. I'm Greg Gillispie. This is Faith Under Fire.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.